Could you explain to me what the hell's going on in Ashenvale?
Yes, there's a PvP event that is in there. That's basically it. Where you get your you get your Warsong Gulch rep in there, and you can get all this stuff, but it's actually in the world. So it is.
Right.
Yeah.
But why is it turned into a thing? Because I've noticed that it's a thing.
Because there's literally a thing in there. There's a Farseer, or I think it's a Keeper of the Grove spawn, and it's literally an event that starts like an actual battle. You know the way you'd have the battle for Nashatar?
Oh, yeah.
It's kind of something like that, where you, as things are done in the zone by people, a progress bar fills, and once that's full, basically bosses spawn at either side for for each faction to try and take down. And there's like lieutenants that are basically mini bosses that you have to kill. So you like actually properly have to.
Oh,
race.
so it's PvEVP.
It's PvE. It's PvEVP. Yeah.
That's obviously why it's a shit show. Are people enjoying it?
Yes, people are enjoying it.
Oh, they are.
People are really enjoying it. It's great.
Oh, I thought they were really angry.
People are angry at some of it because it is a bit broken. It's a bit broken. And there was a big post made by your man. I keep forgetting his name. This morning about it.
Is this a Blizzard person?
Yeah. The Josh guy. I think it was Josh. Is it Greenfield? I can't remember. His name.
Oh yeah. Greenfield. He's like a software engineer background, right?
I believe so, but he was talking about it and like just this massive post about what was wrong with it and like why things were breaking. And it was one of those things of, the Season of Discovery team are allowed to say whatever the hell they want. Seems.
Oh, hey,
yeah.
I think we got to cover this. Right.
Yeah.
I've just dropped a link here in our Notion. So if you follow that, let's just do this as our first segment. I've been wondering what's going on with Ashenvale. I suppose we can all sort of learn together.
Yes.
I'm going to be diving into Season of Mastery over the Christmas break.
Well, yeah, Season of Mastery. God, you're a bit late for that one, mate.
Listen, man, I've got to catch up.
Yeah, you're a bit late here.
I will be diving into Season of Discovery during the Christmas break. I am very, 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 very excited. I still remember running around with Matt, killing harpies in the Barrens. Launch night of Classic.
Billion years ago.
About 18 years ago. How much fun that was. So, I'm absolutely thrilled, to be honest, at the prospect. That I'm going to play a bunch of Napoleon Total War. Because, man, I booted that up, runs on my laptop, do the Battle of Waterloo, think about multiple, now that soldiering memes from Sharp, and perfect time, yeah. Big cozy Christmas. Right, so... That's the event guide. Then the other thing is the post from Mr. Greenfield.
Agrand.
Or should we say Agrand?
He is the WoW Classic game producer. I forgot what his actual name is.
Okay. That may not be him. Anyway, so what he says is, sometimes in game development, you find yourself in situations where things don't go according to plan. In the past, we've done our best to remain transparent.
I've got to say, please don't read this whole thing out.
Holy moly!
Yeah.
Okay, right.
Yeah, I read this morning. It is crazy.
What is it supposed to be? So the intent is use a fairly compelling carrot and a stick, Warsong Gulch rep and amount to get people into Ashenvale so they can fight. Now, that is a thing that's actually bloody interesting to me because could you imagine a situation where World of Warcraft Legion had vibrant PvP, had new PvP maps set in the zones, where war mode was tied into battlegrounds, and where it maybe felt like some sort of cohesive, designed game.
No, I can't imagine. Not at all.
Which at the very least says they have been open about like trying to learn lessons from Classic. I remember they did that. They did that in BFA, and apparently what that meant was just bringing scrolls back. I think people are more thinking like, let's try to think, a wee bit deeper. This is an example of something like that, Is this literally like Wintergrasp? No, but are there kind of like similar vibes of it all being connected and being a world? Yes. Exactly. In that respect, it was a success. It's a hotly contested zone that houses several quest hubs, as well as our endgame raid for the level 25 band, so conflict was assured. We really wanted it to be a non-stop hotbed for PvP. One of those things, world PvP has always been like amazing and promised, but in reality it turned into, just that people aren't aware, back in the day it turned into like lots of ganking, which is fun, and South Shore versus Tarren Mill, because that's where the graveyards were set up so that it was a good place to farm. To farm your honor points. They tried to carry that design intent through with the PvP objectives in the Burning Crusade, and everyone had flying mounts.
And that's it.
Yep, didn't really matter.
Yeah, and that's it, which is interesting because from talking to Jared, like Ashenvale seems like there's obviously people who are in there for the card on the stick. They're there for the rep, for the mount, because it's like a little 25 mount kind of thing. But one of the other things is that like Warsong Gulch and the Ashenvale, here's the Night Elves versus the Horde, or like versus the orcs at like pushing in, is actually like a really compelling part of, I guess, like the world at that time.
Yeah.
So they're like,
who'd have thought?
Yeah. So they're like, what if we just make it a little bit more heavy PvP, and you can go and have fun there. You can fight each other properly. And like as Jared was saying, like the fantasy part of that is really strong, and the amount of people he sees that are just like properly just like, I'm rolling a night elf rogue or something to just go and kill a load of orcs, or vice versa. I
mean, what if World of Warcraft Ashenvale carried on the feeling of Ashenvale in Warcraft 3?
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
Big W. Right, so they always wanted the zone to be PvE, but with plenty of PvP going on. Now then, how does this work? It starts with a lead-up phase. During that, there's a counter that runs behind the scenes and adds up how many PvP and PvE kills occur in the zone. That's interesting. Once the counter reaches a number, the battle begins, as represented by a percentage counter in the UI. This element then is replaced with an objective tracker to track the battle. Once the battle begins, 3 lieutenants spawn for each faction at various points of the map. Keepers that grow for the Alliance, Blade Masters for the Horde, General for each faction. For the Horde, this is a Farseer, Priestess of the Moon, both are invulnerable, do massive damage. Okay, so it's taking a lot of the design intent of Alterac Valley.
Yeah, it's AV.
Now, here is where this gets to be interesting to me. I remember thinking about the Battle of Shatrat City in Warlords of Draenor, and how it was a cool little, thing that happened. But it wasn't actually a battle. There was no battle in the real world. So obviously this is it being done by PvP. But what happens if you do that with PvE AI players? So that's the bit where I'm starting to think, like, what could a truly next level World of Warcraft, like Warfronts? Because I don't want to say it, but this is a Warfront. This is like a Warfront as implemented in World of Warcraft with World of Warcraft's mechanics versus a very forced, scripted thing that was perhaps... Do you know what it is? I feel like with Warfronts, and maybe it just represents some of the thinking the team had back then, very first-order thinking. Very, this is our type of thing we're going to do. It's going to harken back to Warcraft 3. What does that actually mean? Instead of, I suppose, in the same way that this makes you feel like Warcraft 3 is going on in Ashenvale, via the mechanics of WoW, they tried to shoehorn the mechanics of Warcraft 3 into WoW. And then it doesn't really work. Whereas if you've got something like this, that actually is beginning to feel more like what we'd sort of understand as a Warfront, at least in theme and fantasy. If you can then do that with those kind of like smart AI players, this is the kind of thing where I'm thinking, like, how does World of Warcraft eclipse other video games in terms of what their zones feel like? And I know not everybody wants a PvP zone, which is why I would imagine they're doing it PvE with, with NPCs. That could be a pretty damn cool thing to do.
Be interesting if they have the technical capacity for that, just in how much you can run things not in instances, because obviously the time the Island Expedition PvP guys, obviously that was instance and pretty limited. But the idea of having that but planted into its own, where there's actual just, hey, we are, in a way, I guess, artificially keeping the zones alive, but in a way that, it's a video game. You're fine to have NPCs do stuff. Like, obviously, without NPCs, you wouldn't have cities, stuff like that. So I think that's really interesting to me, that it's so easy to conceptualize that, just sort of different pieces coming together to make something like that actually could be a pretty game-changing experience, honestly. Because I'm just imagining the idea of this place always. Now, how to make it feel meaningful and how to not get people bored is a different story. But if you have the likes of this going on, but it's also, it's full of what are basically mooks. Because I know a lot of people don't like PvP because and another player is a challenge, and another player can be difficult.
Hence, they like Comp Stomp.
Yeah, so like
that's partially just for grinding rewards, of course.
Yeah, and that's kind of thing where if you just had Comp Stomp in his own, basically, if you had Comp Stomp in his own, that would be good as hell.
Yeah.
If you, especially like if you have something along the lines of this like fantasy first and world first stuff.
Yeah, and you can okay, so imagine, I don't know, I'm going to invent a place called the Fields of Strife, and I'm pretty sure that's literally a place in the game, but whatever. Let's just say Odin carves out some realm, right? And it's just, you know, us battling against the Valajar, and there are all these like named Valajar NPCs, and you know, like Heimdall and co, like they can all sort of come in and act as like literally have the AI of a player, but the power of a boss. You could actually start to do some like pretty cool things. That's just one quick little example, because obviously there'll be some Odin-ish related stuff with, you know, Odin tier in the future. But yeah, like if you want to make it feel like a zone is being invaded by whatever type of, I don't know, like Burning Legion, or I mean, not that we'll be dealing with them. Maybe, yeah. But like, just imagine how cool that would feel. Anyway, point is, make a PvE version of this using the AI tech you've already got. Though getting that AI tech to work not in a little, you know, happy instance island that only has 4 or 5 people in it, or 3 people, whatever it was, that could be challenging. Anyway, what went wrong?
Lots.
Oh dear. Okay. On a realm with a single layer, there are very few points of failure. This is one thing that I've always thought about in WoW. You know the way you have any cool idea for, like, how the world could matter in World of Warcraft? And then you think about sharding. You think about, say, Wintergrasp, right? And maybe this is one of the reasons why Warfronts ended up having to be so lame. Like, you know the way they were supposed to be like, oh, the Alliance and the Horde are fighting each other in a big war, and it just turned out like there's a bar that fills every 7 days, and it swaps. And there's, you know, it's not actually a war. Whereas like Wintergrasp felt like a war. But they couldn't do a Wintergrasp now. And like Wintergrasp itself, it's been converted into like an epic battleground or something, I think.
It's epic.
Because like, yeah, nowadays, like they couldn't really do something like Wintergrasp, because you could just face hop. You know, you could face hop to a Wintergrasp where, like, I don't know, Vault of Archivon is open for your faction.
Yeah, that's the problem, and this is just kind of why I think this post specifically is really interesting, because it actually, like, I think this is one of the first times I've ever publicly kind of talked about it in this way of like, hey, this is like how layers literally present challenges to us on a design level. And not just on a technical level, but like literally how they, you know, how they keep things fair and feeling proper. Whenever it's like, oh yeah, well and not even just that, but in the way that it's a thing they can't negotiate with. They can't be like, well, they need to layer, because if they don't, the game crashes, like the server crashes. So they actually have to, like, they are now stuck in this world of we have to work around these actual limitations, which I think is very, very cool.
Yeah, and perhaps some of the lessons they're learning here, like, could kind of be applied to modern, maybe. But anyway, they say that if there's one layer, you don't really have a problem. The issues we're seeing now are a conflict between multiple different systems that are meant to load balance server pops, as well as unintended interactions between some fixes that they made. Oh boy.
Yeah. So basically stuff just started to break, and then they tried to fix things and broke them in different ways, which is obviously, whatever the 99 bugs, fix, take one down, fix it, 100 bugs, that thing.
I suppose is the thing here, like, is layering, that's a different system to sharding, though. Like, I'm fairly sure that's a different system to sharding, but I mean, it's probably using a lot of the same tech.
Yes.
But it does, like, literally work differently, I believe.
Kind of the same.
Okay, so interesting then. They basically have people, many people joining groups, often using external tools to coordinate. If a player leader organizes several, I'm down a little bit from there, organizes several full raids to all congregate in one layer, that layer then hits a threshold, and then it stops trying to add people, but for a time it will continue to allow more people to join in order to not break up those groups. So basically, all of the limitations of the system kind of get exposed in a way where they naturally wouldn't be exposed, I suppose, under the, like, original incentives that existed in the world in the past. And that essentially has broken Ashenvale.
Yep, broke the hell out of it. And I loved reading this whole bit where it's just like, here's the layer manager, here's everything that's happening. And it's just, stuff happens, we need to move people. We need to move people or it will break. So we're trying to make things work, and it is full like small team spaghetti code stuff, which I think is great to see them actually playing with it like back and forth. Like even like every time we'd retire a layer, it would cause players to change layers as the manager rebalanced and redistributed folks. And you kind of go, oh well, yeah, I could see that happens because it's a load balancer. But the act of being load balanced is disruptive because it changes the world state because you're moving to a literally different world, which I think is really cool.
So yeah, that is just like dominoes.
Yeah,
as different systems bump players to another system, and oh my god, software engineering fun time. Because like every time you, I suppose, write a specific for-purpose solution to one problem, that's all it does, and maybe there will be problems.
Yep, absolutely.
Fascinating.
That ended up getting people like it ended up adding a bug where progress would reset because of, and I loved this as well.
Blizzard are so desperate for engagement that they're literally edging their players.
Yes.
Wow.
That's it.
I cannot believe you've done this, Mikey Barra.
Specifically, he is the edgelord. I'm never going to be able to say edgelord again. Damn it.
Oh no.
Why did I ruin this for myself? But yeah, there was a bit where, so as like he goes on to explain here, the progress tracker is an aggregate of progress across every layer. Mm-hmm. Why is that? Because they didn't want people layer hopping. Because they just go, oh, join the layer that's done. So they went, well, okay, well, every layer, it's an aggregate, so everything starts at the same time. That's what we want to do. So designing the system for that, then they're like, oh, well, we retired a layer with high progress. So that progress gets pulled out of the average. So it looks like the progress is just jumping pretty like badly up one way or the other way, which I think is really like, you could see how everything comes together to these like really super like edge cases that I think are fucking fascinating. And the same whenever they would spin up a new layer, and that's just like, oh yeah, well, we've just added, so you're now averaging by, say, instead of 9, you're averaging by 10 numbers, and the 10th number is just 0. Or like, you've just brought the average down again. And that was just like people knowing that. But how do you fix it? Well, you go back to the way where it isn't aggregated or average, right?
Yeah.
And then that's going to result in a bad problem. So it is like, which experience is the worst? Which experience are you willing to let players have? Because you have to like choose because of limitations. And I really like the honest and openness around that. Even like the edge case with the battles becoming stalled and objective trackers kind of breaking. It's like, oh yeah, sweet. It just we tried to fix it and broke it even further. Which is literally just like that.
And then that's so hard because what do you want to do? Fix problems immediately for your players who are experiencing them.
Yeah, and they're trying like it.
Yeah. Then I guess what happens, you spend 7 days trying to fix things and somehow the whole thing is still kind of messy.
Yeah, precisely. And then immediately it's like, all right, well here, what are we doing? We'll have fix tomorrow. We'll no longer be killing layers. So give me more layers because if we kill them when it's up, it causes problems. So we aren't going to do it anymore. And here's literally like, there will be more layers than needed and the world may feel more empty. And it's like, yeah, this is the downside of what we're doing. There will be a problem that our fix is causing, but it's a problem that we've chosen that's better than the problem that we're fixing. And then increasing number of kills to kind of flatten the thing a little bit up.
Well, cool. Yeah. So what have we learned? We've basically learned if this makes your brain be tickled, you should probably try being a software engineer, or kind of in that sort of field. I think the main thing we've learned is all of this is downstream of this being, I think, a really good idea. Yeah. And this is totally an idea that modern WoW should nab. And I suppose whenever people think about a Classic Plus, this feels like a really cool evolution of the sorts of things they could do in a Classic Plus. Because like most people were thinking, Black Fathom Deeps, runes. And this has actually ended up being a fairly major component. Mm-hmm. So overall, sick. Let's roll.